Okay, so I just disconnected this linkage to the throttle lever back there, and I've got the throttle lever is in the full throttle position, fully forward. So when I disconnected this lever just wants to go back this way. So it's under spring tension in that direction, and that's because there's a governor spring inside here that it's basically pushing against. So what I want to do now is I want to see if I can get this cover off and see down in there and see if I can see if the metering valve is opening and closing as it's supposed to. And while I'm at it, I can also check and make sure that this shutdown lever is not, that there isn't something screwy with that. Because I did use the shutdown lever to shut it down last time I shut it off before it wouldn't restart. So if there was a malfunction with that mechanism, essentially when I pushed in that shut-off lever over here to restart it, if it didn't allow this to go back to the start position inside here, well then I would have a no fuel situation, so I would probably have no smoke. So now, now when I think about it, I don't think it's this here. I think it's more, hopefully, something to do with this here. Alright, so first I took off this little return line. This is where the return comes out of the pump, goes up over here, and then starts its little merry journey through all 6 injectors and before it goes back to the tank. And then I'm going to have to remove this fitting just so I can get to that screw. And it looks like there's just 3 screws that hold this cover on. That's not what you want to see when you take a screw out. That's covered with corrosion, rust. Looks like even water. That means that water and God knows what else has been getting down inside there. But alright, well, let's continue. Alright, I had removed these 2 screws before I had moved this fitting, so when I went to move this fitting, the whole cover shifted over and broke the seal, and a lot of diesel came out. So a lot of diesel in that section. And then I moved this, rotated this fitting about, I don't know, 15 degrees, and it's just enough for me to get the screwdriver on here and get this last screw out so I can take a look at the mysteries inside this area. Alright, I took the cover off, lifted it over to this position right here, and something sounded like it fell down there, so I think I may have dropped something. That's not good. I'm looking at the bottom of this. I could see where that turn fitting is. That's a check valve in there. I could see it looks like a ball in there. Yeah, looks like a small ball check valve in there. And then I could see this is the big governor spring here. And what, I don't know if you could see it in all this diesel fuel, but down in there, right down where my finger's pointing, if I could find something sharper to point with. Hold on a second. Alright, right down here where my screwdriver is pointing right now, that's the metering valve. And there's a little like fork that engages it, and that must be what causes it to open and close. You can see there's another spring here. You got some various cams. Alright, so when I open and close this throttle, okay, well that's good news, because it looks to me like when I'm opening and closing this throttle, it doesn't look like anything's happening to that metering valve. So again, this would be low throttle position. This would be high position here. And it doesn't look like that's moving at all. Question is, should it be moving? Yeah, sure, it should move. Doesn't need the engine running to pull it open, right? I think. Yeah, what? Alright. The way that little metering valve works is it actually doesn't go up and down, it rotates. So if I move this linkage here, I can make it rotate. See, I can make it rotate that way. And it looks like the way this is working is, I think when it's the further clockwise it rotates, the less fuel. So I think that's the like low position, and that's the high position. So I think the default must be in the high position, even though this linkage here, or lever, is actually to the contrary. I think the reason for that is because what happens is the weight assembly for the governor, once it starts rotating in the pump here, that's going to throw this over this way, and that's going to want to close it down. The point is, I don't think this is my problem, much to my chagrin. Nope, I don't think that's it at all. Bummer. Alright, so what I just did, I couldn't film it because I needed all my hands and everything, was I cranked the engine with this cover off, and while I cranked the engine, I actuated that mechanism down there, and I could clearly see much less smoke coming out in the low position than in the high position, and I was able to confirm that, yeah, that is by default. It wants to stay in the high position, and then it goes to the low position as soon as the RPM, as soon as the engine starts, it's going to kick up to want to put that in low position, unless the linkage here is pulling it back in the other position. So it's kind of a tug of war between the centrifugal mechanism, this spring, and the spring on one side, and the setting of this cam on the other side. So that's basically, it looks like that's working the way it should. So that's not my answer. Alright, and what fell on the ground here before looks like it was just the washers. Each one of these screws has two little washers on it, and this one didn't have the washers on it. They must have been stuck to that, and when I tilted the cover they fell off, but I found them both. They're right here, so that's good. Okay, so now this is interesting. I put this cover back on, and what I did was I decided not to hook up this return line right away, because I wanted to see if fuel would start coming out that return line, and it didn't. But now I actually think I may have forgot to turn the electric pump on when I was cranking it. Let me just see. Let's see if I can. Sorry for the weird angle, but I'm clamping this camera in position to try and give you a look. You also want to put this throttle linkage screw back in to keep that throttle in a full open position. Well, there's not much play to it, really. Come on. I gotta get another glove. Try not to soak my hands with diesel fuel today. Alright. Where was I? Oh yeah, I was gonna put this nut on here. Okay, so crank it with the pump on, and we want to see fuel flowing out of here to go to the return. Right? Right. Alright, so that's right here. That's where we want to see the fuel coming out. Trying to reposition the camera better, and how'd that work out for me? Let's see. Right there. Alright. Contact. There you go. There's the fuel starting to come out of the return. That's doing what it's supposed to do. took a little time because I had opened this up and the top cover here had to fill up with fuel again. Alright. Alright, the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to verify that the timing on the injection pump was correct. How it would jump timing beats me. But I do know that the mounting flange here has slotted holes so that you can loosen these nuts and rotate the pump a little bit, which would change your timing. So I guess it's possible that, you know, that could have loosened up and moved. It's also possible that the last time this pump was reinstalled that it wasn't timed correctly in the first place, and that could explain a lot of the smoke that I was getting when I was running it before. Or maybe, like I said, maybe it's just the worn motor making it smoke. Also, I haven't gotten this thing to run with nice clean fuel in it since I got all of that disgusting sediment and water out of the fuel system. It hasn't run since then. So anyways, what I wanted to do was verify the timing. The problem is I've cleaned off all the gunk on this pulley over here. I would have expected to see marks somewhere on this housing and on the pulley. Now on the housing it's kind of harder to see, so I figured, well, I'll just rotate it until I see marks on the pulley and verify whether or not I'm even in the right ballpark. But I don't even see marks on this pulley, so I'm not sure. Maybe I don't have the right location for the timing marks on this thing. Trying to think of where else they would be. And that's the crankshaft pulley, and then everything else is belt driven, so they're not going to put it up on any of these pulleys. So where are the timing marks? Maybe I missed them. I'll try bumping the starter and seeing if I could see them again. Well, I'm satisfied that there were no marks on this part of the pulley where I expected to see them. So I don't think that's where I'm supposed to be looking for timing marks. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to play around checking the timing on this pump today. I have to see if I can find out where those timing marks are supposed to be. I will, for giggles, give it one more start attempt before I leave for the day. Well, you can see shooting the ether in definitely makes a difference. I still am not convinced that it's not fuel delivery related.